Have you noticed that grocery shopping in America now feels like entering a luxury store? You walk in for a few things, and somehow you leave with one bag and a receipt that looks like your phone bill. It's not just you. Groceries have become ridiculously expensive. Eggs cost more than your favorite streaming subscription, and cheese? You need a small loan for that. But why? What exactly happened to make a basic grocery trip feel like a financial crisis? This video isn't just about complaining, though let's be honest, we'll do a bit of that too. We're going to unpack what's really driving these prices up, from broken supply chains and corporate greed to changing weather patterns and sneaky supermarket tricks that most people never notice. Because behind every $7 carton of eggs, there's a story, and it's not a pretty one. And here's the twist, and it's not just inflation. That's the easy answer. The real reasons go deeper, from fuel costs and global conflicts to how grocery chains quietly raise prices in ways that look normal. Americans are paying more, but earning power isn't catching up. In fact, some people are spending nearly 15–20% of their monthly income on food, a number that used to be under 10%. So how did America, a country that literally produces more food than it can eat, end up here, where a salad costs more than a burger and a gallon of milk feels like a luxury? Stick around, because what's happening in those grocery aisles tells us a lot about money, power, and how the system is quietly shifting beneath our feet. Here's the thing. Inflation gets blamed for everything. Eggs? Inflation. Bread? Inflation. Your favorite snack suddenly shrinking in size? Definitely inflation. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Not all of it is inflation. Some of it is, well, corporate magic. During the pandemic, prices genuinely went up. Fuel was expensive, supply chains were a mess, and factories were running at half capacity. It made sense that costs rose. But fast forward to today, shipping prices have dropped, fuel costs have stabilized, and supply chains have mostly recovered. Yet grocery prices still sky high. Why? Because once companies realized that people were willing to pay more, they didn't feel like lowering prices again. It's called greedflation. Imagine raising your prices because of global challenges, and then just never bringing them back down. That's what many brands quietly did. They used inflation as camouflage, a convenient excuse to fatten profit margins while consumers blamed the economy. Even the data backs it up. Corporate profits for major food companies like PepsiCo and Kroger hit record highs in recent years. So, while you're wondering if you can afford avocados this week, someone in a boardroom is celebrating with a bonus. And supermarkets play their part too. They'll reduce the size of a product, fewer chips, smaller cereal boxes, thinner rolls of toilet paper, but keep the same price. You think you're paying the same amount, but you're actually getting less. It's called shrinkflation, and it's inflation's sneaky cousin. So next time you're holding a $6 loaf of bread, remember, it's not just the cost of wheat or gas, it's the system realizing that you've gotten used to paying more. And they're not about to give that up easily. But that's just the start. Because even if companies are being greedy, there's another layer making groceries painfully expensive. And it's something you can't control at all. Wait till you see what the weather has to do with your grocery bill. You probably don't think about climate change when buying strawberries. But maybe you should. Because that little box of fruit has traveled thousands of miles through droughts, floods, and heat waves just to reach your fridge. And each one of those problems adds $1 or $2 to your bill. Let's break it down. When weather goes wild, crops suffer. Droughts kill yields, floods destroy harvests, and unpredictable temperatures mess up planting seasons. Farmers lose produce. Less supply means higher prices. It's simple. But when the weather keeps swinging between extremes, it stops being a one-time problem. It becomes the new normal. Take California, for example, America's produce powerhouse. It grows a massive share of the nation's fruits, vegetables, and nuts. But the state's been hit with severe droughts, record-breaking heat, and wildfires. Each event wipes out crops, forces farmers to spend more on irrigation, and drives up production costs. Those costs don't vanish. They travel straight to the supermarket shelf. And it's not just the U.S. global food systems are tangled together. When floods hit rice fields in Asia or heat waves strike grain farms in Europe, the effects ripple worldwide. Imports shrink, exports get pricier, and suddenly your pasta costs more because wheat in another continent failed. Even livestock isn't safe. Cattle need grass, which needs rain. When it's dry, farmers buy expensive feed and beef prices jump. Same story for milk, eggs, and poultry. So the next time you're staring at a $12 steak and wondering what happened, think of the weather forecast. Here's the scary part. Scientists predict more of these climate shocks ahead, which means grocery prices might keep climbing. Not because of greed, but because the planet itself is charging us extra. But weather isn't the only thing messing with your wallet. There's a human-made problem that hits even harder, and it's hiding in plain sight at the gas pump. And that's where the real price chain reaction begins. Think of your grocery store as the final stop in a long, expensive road trip. Every apple, cereal box, and gallon of milk has traveled hundreds, sometimes thousands of miles before it lands on that shelf. And guess what fuels that journey? Literally fuel. When gas prices rise, the entire food system feels it. Trucks, ships, and planes, they all burn fuel. So when oil prices spike, delivery costs shoot up. And grocery stores don't eat that cost. You do. Even if gas prices drop later, many suppliers don't rush to lower their fees. It's like once they taste those higher margins, they forget what normal looks like. Let's put it in perspective. Imagine a farmer in Iowa shipping corn to a food plant in Illinois. Then that corn gets processed, packaged, sent to a distribution center, and finally delivered to a store in California. That's hundreds of gallons of diesel just for one product's journey. When fuel is expensive, every link in that chain inflates. And the ripple effect doesn't stop there. Plastic packaging depends on petroleum. So when oil costs rise, even your yogurt cup or soda bottle gets pricier to make. It's like a never-ending cycle where every tiny thing adds up, and your grocery total balloons before you even notice. The problem is that these costs don't disappear overnight. Fuel prices are volatile. Shipping companies lock in long-term contracts at higher rates to protect themselves, which means you keep paying more long after the crisis is over. So while you might celebrate cheaper gas at the pump, your grocery cart is still paying for last year's oil panic. But hang tight. Because if you think it's just fuel making your food pricey, wait till you see what's happening inside the stores themselves. The grocery business has learned some very clever tricks, and they're playing you without you even realizing it. You probably think grocery shopping is a simple task. Walk in, grab what you need, pay, and leave. But no, grocery stores are basically psychological war zones dressed in soft lighting and background jazz. Every aisle, every scent, and every shelf is designed to make you spend more without noticing. Let's start with the layout. Ever wonder why essentials like milk and bread are always in the back? It's not bad planning, it's strategy. They make you walk past aisles of chips, snacks, and shiny new products just to reach your basics. The longer you stay, the more you buy. Then there's the music. Slow, relaxing tunes actually make people walk slower and spend more time browsing. More time means more impulse buys. Supermarkets even play with lighting. Warmer lights make food look fresher. Cooler tones make prices seem premium. You're not just shopping, you're being choreographed. And the sneakiest of all, pricing psychology. A price tag that says $4.99 instead of $5. Vozero tricks your brain into thinking it's cheaper. You feel good about your smart purchase even though you saved literally 1 cent. That's not an accident. That's decades of behavioral research. This is where the price control game gets sneaky. Another subtle trick, product placement. Big brands pay extra to have their items at eye level, the buy zone. Cheaper alternatives are often lower down, near your knees or up high where you won't notice. And those candy bars and sodas near the checkout? That's the last temptation zone, targeting you when your willpower is weakest. Even sale signs aren't always real. Some stores mark something as discounted even when the price hasn't changed much because that red tag alone boosts sales. So yeah, while you're thinking you're outsmarting inflation by shopping smart, the store's already 10 steps ahead. But here's the twist, the biggest price driver isn't even inside the grocery store. It's in the massive corporations that decide what those stores sell. And when you see how few companies actually control your food, things start to get real dark. Here's a mind bender. Walk through a grocery store and it looks like you have choices. Hundreds of brands, dozens of cereals, 10 types of peanut butter. Freedom, right? Not really. Most of those different brands are owned by the same handful of mega corporations. Think about it. PepsiCo owns Quaker Oats, Frito-Lay, Tropicana, and Gatorade. Nestlé controls everything from coffee and chocolate to baby formula and bottled water. Unilever owns ice cream, mayonnaise, soap, you name it. These giants dominate shelf space and pricing power, so even when you switch brands, your money still ends up in the same few bank accounts. When only a few companies dominate the market, they don't have to compete much. If one raises prices, the others follow. Because where else are you going to go? It's a silent agreement that keeps your grocery bill high while giving the illusion of variety. Even store brands, the budget-friendly ones, are often produced by those same companies under different labels. So that generic-looking cereal you grabbed to save $1? It might have been made by Kellogg's anyway. And here's the kicker. These corporations have the power to dictate what farmers grow, how much they get paid, and what ends up on the shelves. It's a vertical chain of control that squeezes everyone. The farmer gets less, the consumer pays more, and the middle giants pocket the difference. In short, you're not shopping in a free market. You're shopping in a carefully curated illusion controlled by a few boardrooms. But it gets even more absurd when you realize how marketing and healthy trends are used to keep prices high while pretending it's all for your benefit. And that's where the supermarket starts turning into a stage, with health claims, buzzwords, and labels that might not mean what you think they do. Once upon a time, food was just food. Now it's organic, natural, clean, non-GMO, gluten-free, keto-friendly, or some other magical phrase that adds $3 to the price tag. Welcome to the health halo, where marketing meets manipulation. Here's the dirty secret. Most of these labels don't mean what people think they do. Natural? Legally, that can still include processed ingredients, preservatives, and artificial flavoring. Cage-free? It doesn't mean chickens live happy lives, it's just that they aren't literally in cages. Organic? Sometimes it's real, sometimes it's loophole city, but the price difference? Always real. Food companies figured out something brilliant. People will pay more if they feel like they're doing something good. For their body, for the planet, or even just for their conscience. So they turned basic food into moral purchases. Buying an $8 juice suddenly feels like self-care. A $10 salad mix feels like a responsible choice. Never mind that it's the same lettuce, just wrapped in eco-friendly marketing. Supermarkets love this because premium labels mean premium profits. A healthy shelf might bring in 30–40% more profit than regular items. And here's where it gets ironic. Many of these fancy, clean products are owned by the same corporations that sell the sugary snacks they warn you about. So you're paying extra for the illusion of virtue, sold by the same company that makes your favorite soda. And yeah, the packaging plays its part. Beige tones, green leaves, recycled fonts. It's design psychology whispering, you're a good person for buying this. But the truth is, most of the time, the nutritional difference is tiny or non-existent. You're not paying for better food, you're paying for better storytelling. Still, even that wouldn't sting as much if people were earning enough to keep up. But here's where things get really uncomfortable. Because the next reason groceries feel so expensive isn't about food at all. It's about paychecks and why they haven't kept up with the cost of living. Here's a harsh truth. Groceries aren't just more expensive. Your money's weaker. Prices climbed, but paychecks didn't. And that gap? That's what makes every grocery run feel like a financial gut punch. Let's rewind a bit. In the 1970s, the average American household spent about 10% of its income on food. Today, that number is creeping up to 15% or more for many families, even though we're supposedly richer. So what happened? Simple. Wages flatlined while living costs exploded. Over the past 2 decades, housing, healthcare, and education costs have soared. That means even if your paycheck technically went up, it didn't go as far. You might earn a bit more on paper, but that increase gets swallowed by rent, bills, and gas before you even think about dinner. And while workers are tightening budgets, corporations are reporting record profits. It's not a coincidence, it's the system. The cost of living rises faster than income, so families adjust. Cheaper brands, smaller quantities, fewer treats. But when everything went from milk to onions that cost 30% more, cutting corners doesn't save much anymore. It's also psychological. People remember what prices used to be, so when something that cost $50 a few years ago now costs $80, it doesn't just hurt the wallet, it hurts trust. It feels like the economy's cheating you. And here's where it gets cruel. Even though prices rise faster than wages, governments use average inflation data to say things are stable. But your grocery cart doesn't lie. You feel the truth every time you tap your card. The result? Millions of people living in quiet frustration, cutting back on basic things while being told the economy is improving. It's not just inflation, it's imbalance. But before you give up and start living off instant noodles, there's still one more piece of the puzzle. One that might explain how we fix this mess. Because the future of food might look very different, and not necessarily in a bad way. So what did we learn from this depressing but slightly entertaining grocery story? Basically, everything's connected. The weather, fuel, supply chains, corporate decisions, even the psychology of supermarket lighting. And somewhere between droughts, boardrooms, and organic labels, the average shopper got stuck footing the bill. But here's the thing, the story isn't all doom. Because while the system feels rigged, cracks are starting to show, and that's where change begins. People are getting smarter. They're questioning prices, spotting shrinkflation, and realizing that premium doesn't always mean better. Farmers markets are gaining traction again. Local produce boxes are making a comeback. Even apps that track grocery price trends are helping people shop smarter. The internet is doing what it does best, exposing nonsense. And some food companies are feeling the pressure. Consumers are calling them out for price gouging, pushing for transparency, and demanding fairer pricing. It's slow, but it's happening. When people vote with their wallets, switching to smaller brands or co-ops, big corporations notice. The truth is, grocery prices didn't just rise because of one big reason. They rose because of a chain of small, compounding ones. And now we're all paying the cost of that imbalance. But systems can be changed. What's broken can be rebuilt. So next time you're at the checkout, don't just sigh at the total. See it as proof of how the world really works. And maybe, just maybe, start asking different questions. Who benefits? Who decides what's normal? And how can we stop playing by rules that keep us losing? Because understanding why groceries are so expensive isn't just about food. It's about power, fairness, and the kind of world we want to build next.